So the vector brushes in classwork has two different parts to it and can be seen up on Blackboard. There's information about vector brushes that you can review in the first part, and then there's two different sections. It's just 2 pages each, basically a 2-page spread. And I have examples of them being finished and plus over here. So this one actually has a lot of extra stuff. The first 2 pages you would work on mostly kind of have this. So this first one has you walking through setting up some text using a gradient, which I'll go over in a second, and applying sort of an artistic vector outline to some text. Now, if you want to explore further and add in all the rest of these things, you can go right ahead. But the bare minimum is to get this gradient on the background and to get the text with the vector art on the outside. A thing to note, the book, the last step, step 10, says make sure to always expand to fill, meaning that if you've applied a vector brush around the outside of these, make sure you don't just leave it there, that you click this button, expand to fill, it'll consume resources. Not really. Even with all of this stuff in here, right? All of these things, if they were all vector brushes, you're still not going to consume that many resources. Computers are pretty fast now. This stuff isn't too bad. If things are getting laggy, then yes, you should expand to fill on some things. That would be the first step. Know that when you do that, you can undo, right? So you can, I was using this example here, if I say expand to fill, and I only take one other step and I go, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. I hit undo a couple times, it's no longer fill. But if I expand to fill here, and then I work on 72 different things over here, and then I come back over here and I'm like, oh no, I need to change the whole size of this. Nope. It's not, there's no changing the path that this border is drawn on anymore. It's that size, it's that shape, and that's where it's staying. So it's sort of it's a one-way street. Once you make something expanded to fill, it's going to act like that. And it's going to be, there we go, that. Which is no small effect on resources either, all of those anchor points that you'll see on all of these things. Let me see if I can, there it is. So whether or not you expand to fill, that's up to you. All right, the gradient, which we did not go over yet. I'm going to make all of this invisible. Make a new layer. So gradients work like this. We grab a shape tool, and initially there is a fill color. I'm going to turn off the stroke color here. And in this case, they have you making it the same size as your background, which happens a lot because you need a background color. But when you select it, you can go up here to your palette that looks like a color palette. And instead, you have to make sure you're on the fill, not the stroke. The fill, right? These are the options for the color of the thing that's selected. And instead of solid color, you say linear gradient. This is what all gradient panels look like in pretty much all of Adobe. This is the gradient itself. This is the color picker for the colors in the gradient. If I select this right here, this caret, and then I change the color to red, it's going to change the gradient to red. But I want to go to black. And then this here, I'm going to put it to the middle, and you can see it shifts where the gradient goes to. I also don't want it to be going all the way to white. So I kind of do something like that. And I can add another caret down here to have it go back to black, right? So you can set up as many points as you want, but just like the vector brushes, this is a procedural thing. So the fact that this looks like a little bit of a band, I'm kind of stuck with that unless I want to kind of take this and make it even darker and see if, oh, hang on, it's got to be selected. That's the one problem with this. We can't really preview it properly because as soon as you click it off, you have to come back here, you have to reselect it, and then you can't see it. All right. The other thing is that what if we want this to be facing a different direction? That's actually a different tool. It's not part of this panel. If we want this to be facing a different direction, underneath, I never remember, yep, underneath the free transform tool, if you click and hold, there's a gradient transform tool. And we can rotate it using this one little handle right here. If I hold down shift, it'll lock to 45-degree angles. And we can use this to scale it down, or to even have it be a gradient only in the middle. Right? So that So that is the gradient transform tool. We can use it to rotate, so I mean you can have it askew if you want, or we can use it to control where the gradient is on a particular object. I can move this and have it start down here and then move up like that, right? So this is how you control where gradients are on the actual shape, is using this gradient transform tool. It's sort of like a free transform tool for the gradient. And then we go back to our move tool when we're done. You can see, by the way, that when they built this, they put every layer or every item on a different layer. Not uncommon, because then you can control things. And notice that they labeled all their layers. Food for thought. All right, the second assignment, which is significantly later in the book, but that doesn't mean it's that much harder. The book is not organized like that. Pages 94 to 95, creating a flat UI button. So this is using the symbols in the brushed library to create a shape to start off with, right? So instead of drawing an arrow, which takes some time, you use one of the arrows, but then you change it. So these do not look like the arrows that are in the brush library. There have been changes made, and you will follow the instructions to make those changes. This chapter also has information on why we're looking at 3 of these. We have a super flat over here, mild gradient and drop shadow over here, and then lots of detail over here. And they talk about how design changes through the ages, right? So you can kind of look at these to get ideas of how people work on these things, and how these things have changed. And you know, everyone has their own style. Every project has its own style. So no one of these is the right way. But the book walks you through these steps, and then just shows you this one. So that's the in-class assignment. If you're looking to make that up, you do both of these sections, and you hand in both files to Blackboard.